Hi, my name is Melissa, and I'm a licensed clinical therapist with a private practice based in Los Angeles. If you are new to my channel, I post weekly content on managing mental health with me, Melissa. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons because I post content weekly. Today, I am going to be talking about something called racial trauma. We are going to take a look at what that means and some of the history to get a better understanding of how it developed. An article entitled Racial Trauma, Theory, Research, and Healing by Comos Diaz, Hall, and Novell in 2019 defined racial trauma as a form of race-based stress experienced by people of color and indigenous individuals. Some of these experiences include harm, threats, injury, shaming, and witnessing violence. Racial trauma looks similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. However, it's different in that it is ongoing trauma and stress an individual experiences. Before we take a look at some interventions to this trauma, it is important to take a look at the racial disparity that people of color, particularly African Americans, have experienced in American history. As history demonstrates, African Americans have an extensive past of oppression stemming from slavery and racism. Africans were forced onto ships and brought to America. Even after slaves were emancipated after the Civil War, they continued to experience harsh discrimination and continued racism. In the book entitled African Americans in Bereavement by Lori and Niemeyer, due to inhumane and unethical medical treatment provided to African Americans are less likely to detect the early stages of medical issues compared to their Caucasian counterparts. Continued racism appears to be a problem as seen in police brutality. An article by Bryant Davis, Adams, Alejandro, and Gray entitled The Trauma Lens of Police Violence Against Racial and Ethnic Minorities, they state that there is a history of violence against racial and ethnic minorities that contextualize the traumatic experience of police violence. As we see here, due to the extensive history of current racism African Americans have experienced and experience on a day-to-day basis, both institutionally and personally, one can be predisposed to racial trauma. What can we do in response to a friend or someone who experiences racial trauma? And if you are the individual experiencing racial trauma, what can you do? Let's first take a look at how you can respond to someone experiencing racial trauma. You're going to want to actively listen and validate. Obviously, if someone is opening up to you about their experiences and feelings, they have some level of trust in you. Process these emotions and listen to them. You're going to want to validate these emotions and acknowledge that racism exists. If they are okay with it, offer to assist in identifying resources such as mental health assistance. If you are the one experiencing racial trauma, Bryant Davis's et al. Article mentioned above expressed studies show that being engaged with groups or something called an emotional emancipation circle develops for people of African descent are support groups that are aimed at overcoming powerlessness, marginalization, system violence. They foster a sense of support and working together for social justice. Reaching out to others that have experienced similar injustices and oppression can help bring a sense of community. Other options are reaching out to a mental health provider for additional support. Thank you so much for watching. It is all of our responsibilities to fight oppression and bring justice to those that have experienced injustice.